For practicing using a pipette, we are going to use a practice die, so definitely make sure you wear gloves. In your tub, you will have some equipment that you'll need, so we're going to use a bottle of distilled water, a couple of beakers so we can transfer the water and pour it over the gel plates. You have some tips, they're going to go on the micropipette. You have your practice die is in a microcentrifuge tube. It's very dark blue, and this block is just to hold it so you're not trying to sit it on the table and it spills. So when you open the cap, just leave it open and leave it inside the block, and to close it, you're going to hear it snap. Okay. Then you have your plates. Now the plates, we have a card. Each plate is numbered on the bottom, and you'll notice that there are 3 rows per plate. Now this particular gel is a lot denser than what we're going to use, the agarose, the seaweed. So you just need to be even more careful when we actually run the lab. But it has a lid, and so the number is on the bottom. So that way if you do mix up the lids, that's totally fine. These particular gel plates, the welds do not go all the way to the bottom, which means that your micropipette tip should not touch any of the sides and definitely do not go through the bottom. If it goes to the bottom, then the dye starts filling in the bottom part, and each weld that you do, it destroys it. So you are going to put your name next to the plate that you use for both the practice and the technique grade. If anything is damaged, you are then responsible for replacing the plate. So you need to take extra care on both your practice and when you do your technique grade. So once you complete that, everyone gets their own plate, use it both days. What we'll do is you're going to put down some paper towels. It just makes cleanup a lot easier. Get these other plates out of the way. Now, for the micropipette, you may have 2 different kinds, and it doesn't matter which one you use, they're just different brands. So when you're done, pay attention to what box you take it out of. Each micropipette is labeled with the table number. Okay, so we'll put the box aside, and this is the pipette. So to hold it, most of them will have a little place to put your hand. Your thumb goes on the 2 knobs. So one is for dispensing the dye or whatever solution you're using. The other one is, if you notice the tip, okay, it's going to push. That's going to eject or pop off the tip that we're going to put on. So this part of the micropipette never goes into any solution or dye. So let me get a micropipette, the tip for the micropipette. And it looks like this, okay? And it's going to go on the end of the micropipette. Now this does not clip on, just push it on till it's snug. And so if I was to eject, you'll notice this will come down, and then what it does is it pushes it off, okay? So let me put that back on. And what I would do is just practice using the micropipette. This is probably something you've never really worked with before. So this is to push off the tip. The other piece that's very important is the plunger. Okay, so when you're doing the plunger, there's actually 2 stops. So push down slowly and you'll feel it hit a stop. And when you push it down again, that's going to push out the remainder of any dye or solution that you're testing. So it's a 2-stop plunger. So you go down 1 and then again, okay? So just make sure you feel how that works. And then of course you can eject that off. For this particular practice, you can use the same micro tip, the tips for this, but if you were actually testing with different chemicals, substances, definitely make sure you switch out these tips. Also, if you notice that when you're practice loading or even when you're doing your technique grade, that if it's not coming out straight and correctly, there may be a little bit of a crack. So then you can go ahead and get a new tip. So like I said, there are two different types, two brands. So you may have this one and you may have this one. They both work the same. One thing you will notice is that you can change the amount of the microliters. So there's a number. Let me take a look at this one. This one's a little bit easier. So the dial is here, the black part. So we want to do 10 microliters. So the way you read this is that it looks like 100. Okay, so I get that closer. It looks like 100, but it's actually 10.0. So just turn that until you get 10.0. Okay, and that one, for this one, is actually the plunger itself. So it turns. This is a little bit easier to use. So there's that. Okay, so to start the activity, what you will need to do is we need to put a liquid, and I'm going to remove this so we can just see it a little bit better, but when you're actually doing it, put it on a paper towel, that way it doesn't overfill, but just for demonstration purposes, we'll use that. So what I want to do is I'm going to get some water, and I'm first going to transfer it over to a beaker so I have more control. Never pour back into the container. So what I want to do is we're going to pour the liquid until it covers the surface. Okay, and so we may need to tap it just a little bit, but we don't want it spilling over the edge. And you may notice there are some bubbles that have formed in the well. Okay, so now moving forward, I'm going to get my micropipette and I'm going to hold it the correct way. So my thumb is controlling my plunger and my eject. Be careful not to push the eject until you're ready to pop that tip off. So what I want to do is I'm going to open my cap that has my dye, and then you need to be able to keep a very steady hand. So there's different ways you can do that. I put my arm under my other hand, and then that way it's not shaking, because if you sit here, it's hard to hold it steady if my elbow is just resting on the table. But you do what is comfortable for you, because we want to keep that tip as straight as possible. I've also seen some people that put their hand right here and rest the tip on it that way. So sometimes you can lower it, raise it. Sometimes that's really helpful also. So what I want to do is I'm going to pick up some dye. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to push my plunger in, and I'm going to put just the tip in, and then I'm going to pull it up. So you can see it pulls up just a little bit of dye. So once I've picked up my dye, I'm going to carefully wipe off the tips. I don't want to grab a hold of it and pull it. It could pop that tip off. I just want to get the dye on the outside of the tip. And then what I'm going to do is I need to look at it at an angle, and I'm going to submerge gently in, plunge, leave the plunger in, and pull it out. If I leave the tip in and then let go of the plunger, I'm basically just sucking it back out. Okay? So here is a close-up from the side, and you can see that the well, if I hold that camera just right, the well doesn't go all the way to the bottom, but the dye is filling up about half of the well. So when I put my tip in, okay, the tip is just going to go right below the surface, okay, ever so slightly, and then it's going to fill up. I'm going to see if I can fill this with one hand while the camera's, okay, so here's this. And if I plungered that too quickly, let me show you one if I go too quick, or don't wipe it off. So let's say I don't quite get all the way in, it's smeared. So what I want is nice, perfect looking rectangles, nothing poking through the bottom. It's just sitting, and again, we're only filling it half full just so we have a little bit more control. So let me go ahead and do another one here. So let me show you one where I fill it too quickly. Okay, and then I get that, even though it looks like it, but I've got a lot of extra. What would happen if I was running a sample, and these were different DNA samples, and I've got all this floating around it? That's going to cross-contaminate, and then the DNA, when it runs the electrophoresis, it's going to mix the DNA, and it won't give me a pure result. So it does take practice. There are a lot of wells. If you want to continue practicing, then what you need to do is you just lay your paper towel on it, let it soak it up. Okay, you'll have a paper towel underneath, but I was doing it just so we can see. And then you don't want to try to carry this to the sink for obvious reasons, okay? And so there's a tub, and you can throw the tub in there. Just go to the sink, and with water running gently, just rinse these out. Do not try to dry the surface, okay? It's a tacky gel. And then you can continue practicing. For the technique grade, you only get 4 wells, and you do, and whatever's the best 2. So if you fill the first 2 and they're perfect, then you're done. But you'll get 4 attempts to get 2 good wells. So hopefully that helps, and it does just take some practice, especially keeping your hand steady.